Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tiff Talks Tech. Today, I'm excited because I have Cory Friedman, who's the founder and CEO of Kompas, and we're going to be talking about how he built a product without knowing a single line of code. So I'm really excited to dive into this today. But before we really do, Cory, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Super excited to have a great discussion. And my story is really, I guess, kind of threefold. Where basically I started off as an accountant and switched out of accounting into property management space, and then continued my evolution into ultimately becoming a prop tech founder. So definitely took each of these steps and my experience to kind of roll into the next evolution of my personal and professional development.
Amazing. That's awesome. I want to start with talking about the big picture and where did the idea for your product come from? And was there a specific pain point or problem that you were seeing that inspired you to take action?
Definitely, definitely. I guess all great products. Hopefully, we have a great product, but all products come from a pain, right? So my pain was really I had a property management business, and we were managing close to 800 units in multifamily in the city of Montreal. And it's hard work. It's relentless. You need an army of people and an army of processes, and everything was manual and everything was friction filled. And we wanted to grow the business, my brother and I, and we're looking at each other and saying, "Hey, we only have so many brothers, right? It doesn't make sense. It's not a profitable way that we're operating. Where every time we got a building, we needed X amount of people and X amount of resources and X amount of time." But we kind of like that was really the problem I was trying to solve is like, how can we grow our portfolio and scale our business in a profitable way? And really, like, for me, it came down to, automating the back office and the accounting and the reporting because the numbers never lie and it's a business to make money. And your owners or your clients or yourself, you need to know if these properties are making cash flow or making money or making profits. So it was always tied around an accounting system to drive this automation and to drive this scalability.
Yeah, definitely. When you were first getting started, since you didn't have any coding experience, did you have any hesitations or fears when you were thinking about bringing this idea to life?
So yeah, so even before that, I had no intention of building my own product, right? I was very happy to be a customer for another service provider who was, hopefully filling this need. But what ended up happening is the more service providers that I spoke to and the more demos and proposals I got for these, all-in-one PMSs or accounting softwares, I started scratching my head and saying, well, there's a disconnect here. I'm not ready to pay an arm and a leg for, you everyone knows who we're talking about here. The Yardbies of the world and whatnot, and the MRIs. I'm not ready to commit that type of money, that type of resources, that type of onboarding pain for the end result of a 1980s or 1990s SAP like friction filled accounting software. So that's what led me to say, hey, maybe I'll start build my own. And I absolutely had doubts. There was no chance that I had any confidence in myself to actually build out the vision, right? I had an idea. I had a vision of how things should be, but in no way, shape, or form did I have the technical prowess or technical confidence to say I could deliver this. And it was really like serendipitous how it all started because I had a good friend who was also running a business in a complete different industry in the furniture business. And he came to me one day and he said, hey, I love talking shop with you. And I know that your background in accounting, you live in spreadsheets. Have you tried Airtable? And I said, well, Air what? Table what? I don't know. What's Airtable? And he said, listen, Matt, thank me later, but go make an account. If you have skills in Excel, you can build any software you can dream, any workflow you could dream with your Excel skills. And all of a sudden, I'm like, how is this the perfect timing in my life for this to happen? Because I've just been contemplating of how I'm so not like accepting the status quo of the incumbents. And I'm saying, okay, wow, it's meant to be. And that very night, I make an account on Airtable, free account, and I start building my first database, my first table, which is essentially a spreadsheet. And I have this eureka moment where it says, oh my God, I'm going to build a property management ERP. I'm going to do it. And I have the vision. And now I have the tool to kind of be the vessel of my ideas. And it was really, really cool feeling.
When you were starting, did you look at any other tools that were like no code tools, or how did you figure out how to use that platform? Did you just figure it out? Did you do
So
tutorials?
Airtable was Airtable was the start of my deep dive in the rabbit hole of self-study and online learning, right? And, this was back in 2019, 2020, really, where no code was still a big thing, but it was not as popular or as accessible as it is today. But really, so many amazing resources online between YouTube videos, between actual people posting in the Airtable community. It's like all I had to do was go on Google and say, I'm trying to do this on Airtable, but I'm failing. And then all of a sudden, the top 10 things were like other people who were trying to do the same thing with their workarounds, with their solutions. And night after night, like I started developing more skills, learning how to implement more tools to kind of create this vast ecosystem of features. But yeah, it was all by the grace of very generous people that were publishing their ideas and their content and their failures and successes online.
Yeah, that's amazing. When you were kind of going through and looking at platforms, what did you look for specifically? Were there certain capabilities that you were like, I need to have that in order for this to work, that you were looking for?
Yeah, so really, I think there were two things that I wanted. One was I would call it flexibility. I wanted to be able to easily customize my database, my fields, my types, my relationships, my logic, all that. And Airtable really provided, based on my skills in Excel, a tool for my formulas in Excel to turn into basically coding logic. And number two was connection. And this is where Zapier came into play for me, is really, I wanted to be able to connect my database to all different types of platforms and ongoings and things and emails and notifications and integrations and payments and all this. So Zapier was really like, and it's just Google search, how to connect Airtable to your email, right? How to connect Airtable to my Asana account. And then all of a sudden, I just started seeing the Zapier, and this is like 4 or 5 years ago, before Zapier was a mega massive multi-billion-dollar private company. And it's all like, if you can think it, you can watch a 3-minute YouTube video and learn how to do it. And it's really designed to be like drag and drop, plug and play, trigger action, like using the English language to create your coding logic, which was really, really cool for me to kind of grow and experience firsthand.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I feel like it's very inspiring for people who see a need in the industry and they just don't even know how to get started. I think it's really encouraging to know that there's things out there that can help you do it easily.
There's so many tools out there. The problem is not the willingness or the motivation, it's the time,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody has the time to take on a side quest that can be all consuming to build out like your dream platform, right? Because you have your normal job, you have your family, you have your obligations, you have your responsibilities. And the last time I checked, there's still only 24 hours in a day, right? So it's really like, one thing is having the desire, but also having the ability to spend the time and the resources needed to build is probably the biggest blocker for people.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that for sure. Were there any factors that helped you feel really confident about going this route rather than going the traditional development route and with the scalability? Like you're going to roll this out to more people in the industry. What helped you feel comfortable with that?
So the product that I had built using no code was an internal tool, right? I had a property management business and I built it for that business. And we were able to grow our portfolio from 800 doors to almost 4,000 doors since implementing the software, right? I knew right away, nailed it on the head. It was not a scalable solution to be brought to the market for other third party managers or other landlords. And that was really, the best that I could do with my no code Frankenstein was to be an amazing internal tool, very much customized to my DNA of my property management business. So the second that I said, hey, this is working for us, I have other people that are asking me about it. This is where I kind of said, okay, this is as far as I could take this ride without needing real technical help and trying to find like real software engineers to help me bring it to the next stage.
Yeah. So how did you go about that next step when it was time to kind of outsource some of these things? How did you even get started with that?
So I started, it was not easy because even though I had all this no code prowess and I had built these platforms and they were functioning and we had, features and users and scale and growth from our company, I still didn't know a line of code. And I still couldn't really quantify what it would cost for a traditional developer to build the solution that I had. So that was the hardest part is number one, knowing who to talk to. Number two is knowing how to present it in a way where they could say, okay, I can actually create a scope of work, a budget, a timeline, a resource requirement list for this. It took, like most things, like a lot of trial and error. And I basically went on my LinkedIn and typed in like engineer or software engineer, and anybody who was a contact, I wrote to them and I said, hey, do you have 20 minutes for me to give me some guidance? Right. And, I'm very grateful that there were a lot of people who gave their time and kind of added context. And the more calls that I had, the more confident I became in what my proposal or my proposition or my scope was. But even then, it's like you talk to an agency and they're quoting you, okay, this will take 18 months and will cost you $2 million. And then you talk to somebody else and they say, oh, well, I could do it for 6 months, in 6 months for 2K. So it's like your range of resources, budget, timeline was so skewed. And now that I'm interacting with more and more developers, the reason is because there are people that are less ethical and more ethical, or people that want to make more money or less money. And a lot of non-technical people who come with ideas, unfortunately, get taken advantage of by those who are more technical and realize that they couldn't even guess what the real value is in terms of cost. So they just inflate and mark up their prices like crazy and put on this big price tag, and nobody's the wiser, right? Like I said, it's just about having as many conversations as possible with all different types. So whether it's agencies, consultants, individual developers, people who have already business that know and build it, right? So you kind of get more and more pieces of the puzzle, and you could put it together and say, I have a little bit more clarity. I have a little more understanding.
I think that's a great tip because, yeah, I wouldn't know any better. I'd probably go to the first person and go, oh my gosh, that's too much. Okay, I give up. But you have to keep going and doing your research.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when you went to these developers and you're kind of scoping out the idea, did you have your entire roadmap figured out, or were you like, "Hey, this is just kind of an idea. What do you think?" And were they able to give you ideas back?
Yeah. So basically, I went with them and said, hey, I have this no code MVP that I built, right, with my bare hands. This is everything that it does. How can we do a full autopsy, a full dissection of all the features of this software and rebuild it from scratch in a commercializable and scalable way? And at the start, it was like, yeah, no problem. And then when I started unveiling the hood and they realized the complexities and the amount of work that I'd put into this no code, like, they underestimated how complex of a platform you could build with no code. And then when they saw what I had done, they said, oh, wow, well, let's back up a minute and let's revisit everything that I previously said, because I completely underestimated how big of a mandate this is going to be, or how big of a job it's going to be. But that was really my approach. So it took like 2, 3 calls to either make or break the relationship with this potential software developer or agency, because they're like, oh yeah, it doesn't sound so bad. And then when I lift up the hood and they're like, whoa, 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 no way. This is going to be crazy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When you were doing that, did you run into any other challenges? Like once they got okay, this is what we're going to do, were there little bumps along the way that you came across? And how did you make sure that they really understood your vision for the product?
So always, always. And the key here is communication. So two things. When you're going to talk about building technology, everyone is going to quickly have the first debate, which is, do I hire local talent or do I outsource overseas talent?
Yeah.
Right. And there's pros and cons to both, right? And really, the cost is the number one driver for these decisions. But the unintended costs of going overseas is that the communication channel is going to be much more difficult to manage. Number one, you're going to have time differences and time zone issues. And number two, language is very, very important, right? A discussion that you and I can have is completely different than the discussion a CTO and a senior engineer are going to have. And we could be talking very logically about, hey, this is what I want to happen is, I have an advertisement for an apartment. When somebody clicks that they're interested, I want to create a lead and invite them for a visit or a tour of the property, right? That is not at all the conversation that you're dev team is going to have when building out that flow.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about communication, and it was all about, before we started building anything, to care less about the what and care more about the why, and really say, why are we doing this? What is the end goal, right? The end goal of our unit listing turning into a lead, turning into a visit, is so that we can sign leases and occupy the units and earn more rental income, right? Like, understanding and giving them the additional context. And I spent hours and hours and hours brain dumping property management information, accounting information, lease management, maintenance. Like I laugh because we're building an accounting software, right? So I laughed that by the end of this whole thing, I'm going to be a software developer, and my software developers are going to be bookkeepers, right? Because we've talked about the ins and outs of bookkeeping and accounting, and so much that it's like they need to understand it as good as you, so it can translate into their different language.
Totally. That absolutely makes sense. And the other thing I love is that you did spend so much time in the weeds of things so you can best portray that to who you need to give the information to.
If you're not feeling the pain firsthand, you're not the person to solve the problem firsthand. That's the truth. There's a lot of guesswork in terms of building products and features, and and when you talk to different founders and different startups and different solution providers, they'll always say, "Oh, we iterate our product based on customer feedback," right? And
Yeah,
that's the truth, is that your customers are in the weeds, as you said it. They're the ones experiencing the pain. And at the end of the day, your solution, your single focus, needs to be solving this pain, right? So if you're not in the weeds, you don't know what the pain is firsthand. You're not best suited to solve it.
exactly. And like you said, listening, because there might be a lot of things that you never thought of when you're starting. And then listening to your customers, it's so important. And it feels like that is one of the big benefits of going with these smaller companies in prop tech, is that we can move a lot faster in making those adjustments, which is great.
Yeah, the agility for sure. And it's like, when you have these smaller companies, there's the famous saying, you have too many chefs in the kitchen, nothing gets cooked,
Yeah.
right? These bigger companies, the decision-making process is too long. So it's like, if you're a customer out in Dallas or out in New York, or, even out in Canada somewhere, right? And you have a recommendation, by the time it gets from your account manager to your regional account manager to your VP of product, right? Like, it could be not even an issue anymore, or it's done with, right? So, like you said, going with these smaller companies, it gives you that agility, it gives you that opportunity, to have your customization actually be prioritized.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think was the hardest part about the entire process? Were there any moments where you're like, this might not actually work?
Oh my God. Every day there's doubt. Every day there's uncertainty. Every day I ask there's okay, this better work. Like, what, it's like, what if this doesn't work? Like, for lack of a better term, we're screwed. Right. But, I think that it's just about having a little balance in your mindset, and having this kind of fearless confidence to say, you know what? Everything so far has happened for a reason, and there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing, and we're really trying to make an impact. And I want to put weight in those positive feelings, right? And encourage that positive momentum. And it's like anything in life, people are very quick to focus on the 1% negative in their life, because it causes stress, anxiety. There's like a mental and physical reaction that happens. And, it's very important to always take a step back and say, wow, look how far we've come in the last 5 years or in the last 10 years. And there's so much to be grateful for and so much to be appreciative for. And it's just it's a mental practice, right? To shift the energy into more positive thinking.
Yeah, I think that is so important, especially because when you are working on a product like this, you are going to face so many setbacks. And being able to take that positive point of view is really going to help you push forward and keep moving.
Percent.
Yeah. Were there any specific challenges that you faced that actually ended up being crucial in your learning and figuring out where you wanted to go with things and turning that into a positive?
Yes, I would say that we're October now, and back in July, we like soft launched our like landing page and our sign up for early access. And I was continuing to post on LinkedIn about the industry and different pains and whatnot. And I started to get a lot of people who were interested to learn more. And, it's so important to do this before you launch the product
Yeah.
because there were so many little things that, just because I had done things a certain way, I knew that it wasn't going to be accepted that everyone does it.
Yeah.
But the more people you spoke to, the more perspective you got, and you say, wow, this is the third time that somebody tells me that they would love to have this feature, right? And we're okay. Let's throw it in. We're pre-launch. We're ready. Like we're agile. We have a good team. Like it makes sense, right? So like, but with the challenges is like, okay, you already have a certain scope and you have resources allocated. And as my CTO says, like you can't continue to move the goalposts, right? So
Yeah.
it's juggling the idea of, hey, like we want to have this amazing, impactful product, but we also want to get to market and be in live and, kind of ask for forgiveness instead of permission type thing. So that's a big challenge and a big juggling act of like, when do you definitely move the goalpost or not?
Yeah, that totally makes sense, and I feel like it can be hard to pinpoint your messaging to and, like, what you wanna put out there pre-launch, but, you have to do it.
You gotta just throw shit at the wall and see what
Yeah.
sticks, right? And see what people resonate with. And it's funny because a lot of people in the industry are experiencing a similar pain, right? And there's so much meat on the bone when it comes to property management, especially in multifamily, right? You got leasing, you got renewals, you got maintenance, you got tenant interactions, you got budgeting, and you got like there's so many different aspects and then basically so many different opportunities for excruciating and relentless pain.
That's very true. Yeah, but then that's also job security because you have so many problems to solve.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, multifamily does not work without an army of reliable and committed people. And it doesn't matter what tech you have at your company or your operation. You could have all the bells and whistles and 100 different point solutions and the top solutions on the market. If you don't have a team that has direction and motivation and reliability, you don't have a business.
Yeah, that's so true. I wanna talk more about the launch. Once your
Yeah.
product was built, what was that process like, and did you have people testing it, or did you go straight to market?
Yeah, so basically, like I kind of see that my property management business has been like our beta lab type thing,
Yeah.
where we've been able and we have a big enough operation to have like the different users, different components, different setups, different types of properties. So that was really like our beta customers, right? So like I'm very fortunate to have been in this situation where it's like chicken and the egg, right? Like I had this business and I created this product, but this business is like fueling the product and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
like
I can totally relate to that. That makes sense.
yeah, so we're making sure that, we have enough of a testing period where the I would say the consequences are lower because,
Yeah.
I'm my own customer. And then obviously in the new year in 2025, we're going to onboard our newer customers who have either committed already or are in the process of committing, which is exciting because it kind of validates that, hey, there's a need, there's a desire to, take a chance on a new company who's trying to, deliver really, really high amount of value and features and this all-in-one solution, the way that that it should be.
Exactly, I know. The company that I work for, it's Effortless Umbrella and Key Texting, and we have a number of property management properties that we test our products on before pushing any new features or anything like that live. And I just feel like it's
Yeah.
so important that we test on actual properties so that we know, okay, this is how property managers are using it. And even if it's not like your company who owns the properties, like having that test set is going to be critical because they can tell you what's going wrong and what needs to be fixed rather than before when if you were just to roll it out, it would be a disaster.
100%. It's all about those exceptions to the rule or the unintended consequences, right? And you only know once you're live and once you have real people who are trying to use it and real interactions and real situations. And they say, well, this is not at all what was intended to happen.
Yeah,
And now you revisit, or wow, we nailed this one on the mark and let's roll it out across all the users and whatnot. So
exactly.
definitely.
What were some of the most exciting and nerve-wracking moments once you actually went live?
So I think the most nerve wracking was like the idea that, okay, we're managing all of these buildings and there's a lot of people who put a lot of trust in our business. And I'm basically betting it all on this no code solution that I built. What if the accounting software doesn't work, right? What if the debits and credits don't line up? And what if payments get misallocated? And like, so really like the financial responsibility was what gave me the most nerves and
Yeah.
most like discomfort. So like when we had launched like that first month, when we like collected the first of the month rent and like all the money went through and like went deposited in all the right bank accounts, it was like, okay, deep
Yeah.
breath, deep breath. We made it through the first of the month. And then it's like the same thing, like when the month ended and we did the month end close and like our banks were reconciled and like our AP listings were reconciled and like we didn't have like crazy issues like that. I was like, okay, wow, 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 wow. Like every month was like more and more confidence. But like at the start, it was, and even like my brother and like the leadership of our business, they were like, this better effing work. Like there's no going back after this point because, you know, we've committed and we've migrated all of our data and we've gone live. And like, so there was no turning back. And it was like, it was either going to work or I was going to like sweat and bleed and, you know, do whatever it took to make it work.
I love that. If you look back on, from concept to launch, is there anything that you're like, "Oh, I would have totally done that differently?"
I would have, it's a good question. There's too many to count, but let's say my biggest one would be to be more open to help from others. You know, I think there comes to a point where like whether you're writing an article or doing a podcast or building a product, like you have so much ownership and emotional investment into the outcome. And it comes sometimes where like other people's perspectives from a different angle are super, super crucial to like making the best decisions moving forward. I think at times I was so like in the zone and building and whatnot that I didn't have that presence of mind to take a step back and to like bring in other people earlier to say, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think of that? Like, does this make sense? Because what ended up happening is that it just created so much more work later after the launch of like, okay, we need to fix this and we need to scrap that. And this was not what was intended. I think that like leveraging your network of people in different perspectives and different types of users and different point of views is so, so crucial to like really building something great.
Yeah, I think so many times we think when we're asking for help, we're a burden, but I think we'll find that people are more excited to actually help than you think. And I know when someone asks me to help, I feel honored. Like, wow, you think I have expertise? I would love to help.
Right? Yeah, and you know, it's almost like it's better to have more people in your corner, and if you show them that trust, they have more buy-in, more excitement to like deliver more, right? It's the same thing managing a team of employees, right? It's kind of the management style of giving your employees more ownership, more freedom, more responsibility, and more trust in return to get better results and, you know, more like I don't know, more like self-care about people's jobs, right? Nobody likes to be like
Ownership.
super yeah, exactly. Nobody likes to be micromanaged to a certain degree where they feel like they don't really have any decision-making power in their role.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. So, for anybody who's listening who thinks that they have a great idea and they're worried about their technical skills, what kind of advice would you give them about getting started?
Okay, so the advice would be a few things. There's a lot of work you can do without ever even touching a no-code solution to kind of describing and defining and understanding your idea. So I would say that you have an idea. First thing you should do is highlight very clearly who is this idea helping, right? Who are your users? What is the pain? What is the function or the pain that you're solving? And map out what that journey looks like before your solution and what it looks like after your solution. And you don't need to write code or to have a software to do anything. All you need is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. And you say, hey, I have a user. What's their role? Right? I always look back, okay, it's a property manager, right? What is the property manager going to do if they didn't have your solution for this pain that you think you have a great idea for? Well, they're going to put out an ad in the newspaper for an apartment, right? And they're going to wait at the phone,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know, the idea was, oh, let's have digital ads, online ads, right? Like it's kind of what it does is does two things. It can validate, or it can like kind of not invalidate your idea very quickly, because you could look at before and after and say, well, it still sounds like a lot of work. I don't know how much value I provided. But number two, what it can do, it can help you communicate your vision with anybody, whether they're technical, non-technical, because everybody talks in terms of user journey, in terms of function, right? So if you learn to speak that language, that's going to be the number one most important first step I would recommend anyone to do if they have an idea and they want to bring it to life.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about what you guys are doing is, like, you didn't look at accounting software and say, "Well, people are already doing that, so what's another one?" You need to think about what are you going to do differently and how are you gonna solve that issue, because there might be solutions out there, but they might not be have that extra special thing that you can do.
Yeah, no, it's there's a plethora of products out there, no matter what type of business you're in. A lot of times it's like, the saying goes, nothing is one size fits all, right? So um to get that extra special sauce or that extra customization, especially like if you're in a specific region geographically that has different terms or different rules, or if you're doing something in a different way that maybe is a little quote unquote disruptor. So it's really like I find that the no code really gives you an accessible, effective way to create these special sauce and these layers and these added amazing features.
Totally. So if you're gonna give somebody, like, the step by step in taking a product from idea to execution without coding, what would you tell them? Like, step 1, step 2, step 3?
Okay, step one, what we talked about before, is
Yeah.
really having a clear definition of who your users are, what their user journey is, and what is the difference between before your solution and after the solution. Step two is DYOR. Do your own research and get on the internet and start researching no code softwares. Right. There are so many resources. There are so many YouTube videos. You're going to type in YouTube. There's going to be 100 people that are saying, look how I built this app in 1 hour without coding.
Mhm.
Right. Start watching, start seeing, saying, wow, this seems similar to what I want to do, maybe across a different industry or different parallel or whatnot. But you get inspiration. You also get resources to say, I'm going to try and do a free trial for Bubba, or I'm going to do a free trial for Zapier, or I'm going to do a free trial for Make or Airtable or Monday.com, or all of these different tools to say, "Hey, like this is like you just need a vessel. You need a vehicle that's going to bring your idea across the chain. And with no code, you have like an amazing, like it's like cars.com, right? You have 100 different cars to choose from. It's just a matter of which one is the best suited for your particular skill sets to bring that idea across to ideation, to launch, to users, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the thing I love about, watching prop tech is, like, there's no defined I don't know, like being a doctor, you have to go through certain levels of school, but you don't have to do that with this. You can just start Googling things and figuring it out yourself, and you could create something really amazing that so many people could use without having to have all those different layers and this certain way of doing that. So it's kind of out of the box that way, which is really
I,
cool.
I think that not only prop tech, but all entrepreneurship in
Yeah.
general, right? There's never a perfect time. There's never a written formula. Like you can be 60 years old and you've worked your whole life, and then all of a sudden, like something happens, or you could be like 15 years old out of high school and have like this crazy idea. Like there's no predefined prerequisites, any path that you done before. Like it's only going to help shape that potential next step. And that's the exciting part, is like you don't really know what. It's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, it's exhilarating, but it's really cool that, like you said, like there's no mold, there's no formula. Like everybody is in a unique situation in their life with their previous experience, their personal experiences, to come up with that next solution. And I think that this whole no code movement just casts a wider net to the people who have actually the ability to execute on it, right? You're not limiting your pool to only computer science majors or software engineers, right? You're now saying, well, you just have to be like a stable internet owner. Like if you have good Wi-Fi, like get building.
Exactly. I love that. So thinking about what's next for your product, as we kind of wrap up, are you planning on scaling, what's next? Are you going to add new features, expand your team? What's going on in your world?
Hopefully all of the above. So to
Yeah.
give you an idea, we are launching the product in January to the public, so to speak. And we're fortunate enough to have a few property management companies already signed up for onboarding throughout the months of February, March, April, etc. So the goal for next year is really to continue to scale, continue to build our customer base, and to try and find that metric of, okay, we want to offer AAA customer service. So it's like, at what point do we start expanding the team, building out our
Yeah.
account executives, building out our customer service reps, right? So it's really that it's going to be a lot of learning next year as we scale the business and hopefully scale the users, that we want to kind of be different than everybody else who is providing accounting softwares for property management, where it's like, okay, we sent an email, it's 7 to 10 business days, and like we may never hear from them, and like it's just frustrating. Like we want people to have access to our team, to have access to like real conversations and real helpful solutions in an appropriate and reasonable time frame.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I have one last bonus question, and this is something I ask
Amazing.
every one of my guests, although I feel like I can maybe guess the answer. But what's a tech tool that you're loving right now? It doesn't have to be related to this, but that you just use every day, and maybe not Airtable because we did talk about
Okay, so it's not Air. I won't say Airtable. It's a
that.
different Air. It has nothing to do with Airtable, but there's a really cool tool I've been using. It's called Air Parser.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know what parsers are, but basically parsers are like analyzers or little robots that will take a block of text or an image and will pull data from it. So what Air Parser does is we connect it to like a mailbox or any other source for your receive input, and you give it certain prompts to say, okay, pull certain information from this either PDF or email text and create like an actual record of data that can go into whatever data source you have. So whether it's talking about like accounts payable invoices or like specific like lead inquiries from all the different ILSs or different lead sources, like it can actually be like a really cool, powered by ChatGPT, to filter out this data entry, this data analysis in a clean, concise way. So definitely check out Air Parser.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out for my everyday life for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of this information. I feel like this has been really helpful. Where can people connect with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, amazing. And thank you for having me. This is really, really fun topic for me to talk about. Obviously, I'm really passionate about it. So I'm happy to share. And people can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my thinking out loud and sharing. So they could follow me on LinkedIn. My name, Cory Friedman. They could also follow the company page Kompas. It's Kompas. Or visit our website at kompaspm.com. So yeah, really, really thanks again. It's been a pleasure to talk tech with Tiff. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch and seeing all the amazing guests you continue to have on the pod.
Amazing. Thank you so much.